So can somebody confirm that you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to go through a couple of reports that we've developed for reporting on the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy program that has been announced. These programs are not, these reports are not designed to determine whether you are going to be eligible for the subsidy, rather to calculate what the amount would be. So we're going to have two reports to help you calculate what the earnings would be. There's another program in this where you can get a refund of certain payroll contributions if other conditions would be met. We have a report for that also. We'll look at some basic report editing for these reports. These are done in the report designer, and they've been done in a very generic way so that anybody can plug in and they will work. If you have some skill in the report designer, I'll show you some quick little tweaks if things that I have put in these reports don't quite fit. And of course, these reports will be open, and if you have the report designer, you can do what you choose. If you need the reporting, the consultants at Constructive Solutions will be glad to give you a hand. And for anybody who doesn't know how to do this, I'll also do a brief tutorial to show you how to add reports to your Sage 300 CRE menu, so you can actually print the reports out. Oh, sorry. I also meant, if you haven't seen this yet, there is a website that the government of Canada has put out, and this is it here. If you want to make a quick note of that, I believe all this material will be available to you or in a few days close by. And this is where the government of Canada has laid out what the program entails. Okay. So first, we have a couple of reports to calculate what the subsidy amounts would be. As I said before, these reports don't determine whether you are eligible for the subsidy, rather to help you calculate what the amount of the subsidy would be. In summary, the subsidy amount is the greater of the amount of the remuneration paid up to a maximum benefit of $847 per week, or 75% of the employee pre-crisis weekly remuneration, or 75% of the remuneration paid up to a maximum benefit of $847 per week. Bottom line, $847 per week, based on what you're paying them now, or what their average weekly wages were prior to the crisis. That's defined as January 1 to March the 15th. Okay. So we'll have a report that you'll be able to run, and when you fire it up, it'll look like this. Okay, it's a typical report designer report. And these are the kind of prompt fields that this report has. So we have a weekly starting reporting date. So as the pre-crisis date is January 1st to March the 15th, so we're defaulting to Jan 1. When you see the report, you'll see how this will lay out. We have a default number of weeks to divide to calculate the average weekly pay. As usual, these programs are imperfect in how the definitions go. I'm sure there are not many of us that actually pay people on a weekly basis. They're paid bi-weekly, weekly, semi-monthly. So the report will help you look at what the divisor should be for each employee in order to calculate what their average weekly is. No matter what we do, we got to get back to an average weekly pay in order to calculate how much of a subsidy you would qualify for. The current subsidy rate is this, and here's the maximum amount. And we use these in order to run the report. I think we put them here in case these numbers happen to change. You can just edit them here. Okay? So when the report outcome comes out, we have a report that'll look like this. Okay? So we'll just put your starting date, set that weekly. So you can run it for your whole group. I'll show you a way. We built in a way to where you can exclude certain employees when you read the details of the program. you'll see that there's certain employees do not qualify. Okay, so and I will get to the detail of that. So as you can see, it's been laid out for each 7-day period starting at that start date. Now this is based on the day people get paid, not period end dates. As the program states, it's based on the remuneration paid, not when it was earned. So it's based on the paid dates. Okay, so we come through on these weeks. We take you out to March the 15th. Here's the total wages for each employee. The average weekly, what it's doing, it's taking that default 10 weeks that we put in and just basically dividing that by these 10 weeks. You'll have to determine for each company what that divisor is. In this particular example that I have, we can see that people are typically getting paid bi-weekly. There's been 5 pay periods, so their wage divided by 10 weeks will get their average weekly over this period that we have to calculate this for. Okay, so here's their average weekly, and then we have a formula in here that says, okay, well, the maximum benefit is $847. So it's either going to be 75% of their average weekly, we have this number here, or to a maximum of $847. Okay, so there's a couple of things built in here that I will show you how we can, how you can edit. One would be this number of weeks. You'll notice here the default is 10. But part of the calculation is that if an employee didn't work in a particular week, you would exclude that from the calculation to calculate their average weekly pay. So, for example, if we take this employee here, we can see there's no pay here. He's been there for 4 pay periods, so 8 weeks. So we can override the 8 weeks to calculate what average weekly pay would be. Okay. As I said, there's also a way to include employees. So we have some totals down here. So in this example, the total subsidy available is $20,743 for this per week. Okay. So to make some of these edits in the employee setup, so as I show you on the report, there's a default number of weeks. So what I would foresee people doing, running the report, putting in what they think, go with the most people are going to have a pretty steady pay period, and most people would have worked through the whole thing. So you'll have you'll have that default 10, but you'll have some employees you may need to override that. So in this report, we've taken, this is the miscellaneous 2 field. I've renamed it using the custom descriptions. Anybody can do this. And just call this the CEWS divisor. So for this particular employee, by putting in the number 8 here, it will override that 10 weeks that we have just for this employee. Anybody you want to use the default number of weeks, we just leave this blank. And it'll use the default from the report. Okay, I'm going to show you if some of you may be using this field for something else. So in a step coming up, I'm going to show you a couple of simple edits on the report where if you can't use this field, it has to be some other field. I'll show you how you can actually edit that. The other one is that I also mentioned how you can exclude certain employees from the report. So on this miscellaneous info tab, it says checklist number 9. I've renamed it. These are very easy to rename. You just select it, and then you can change the description down on the bottom, and that's what it'll say. Okay? So basically, for this employee, I'm going to say, well, based on the parameters that have been passed out, I don't want this employee included, so I'm going to exclude this employee from this report. Okay. So what we're seeing here now, for those of you who own the report designer, and I'm sure many of you do, you'll be able to open up the report design. This is what this is. If you don't own it and you need to make edits to the report, we'll be happy to give you some help with that. So a couple of basic edits are the two we just talked about. So there's a couple of formulas here. If I go to Tools and then Formulas, okay. So one of them is called the average weekly divisor. That's that number of weeks. Okay. So as you can see, I'm just going to hit this change button here. So what this is telling me is that it's taking that field, that CEWS divisor, which is the miscellaneous 2 field from the employee record. If that's blank, use the number of weeks from the report prompt field. If it's not blank, comma, right, not blank, then use the number that I entered in. So as I said, some of you may be using this miscellaneous 2 field for some other use. So if you want to select another field, we can come in, go to the employee record. To get over here, we go, sorry, wrong one. We can just click up at the top here where it says check pay. Here's your tables. It is going to be something off the employee, so we can pick that. And now if there's some other field that you can use. So for example, there's a miscellaneous 1 field you might want to use. It can be any field that's a alphanumeric field. If you don't have union, you can use one of your union fields. Sorry, I should back up. You can't use one of those, but you can use a shift field. There's a whole series of ones. And once again, if you don't know where to go with that, we'd be happy to give you some help with that. But you can just take these out. I'm just hitting the delete button and replace it with some other field. So now it's going to look to that miscellaneous 1 field rather than the miscellaneous 2 field. If you change the name of these fields, it doesn't matter. It'll all work. It doesn't have to say that you actually make this edit. Okay? You would just save this and you would be done. You'd save the report and you are done. Okay? The other one to look at is the exclude employee. So again, the same thing here. We've used that checklist field 9, which we've renamed. If you happen to be using that for something else, you can select checklist 5, checklist 4, or some other field to exclude employees. Okay. Anytime you make an edit, you can just save the report, or if you prefer, you can do a save as, so you can keep the original design. You can manage these files just like you would within Excel file. Okay. So the calculation of total pay on this report, you can see the name of the report is CEWS reporting gross pay basis. So it's a pretty simple way that we're doing it. In fact, we're just taking what the gross pay is in these dates or the check dates. However, when you read if you haven't already, when you read the requirements that the government have put out, there are a couple of types of pay that can't be included in the calculation of an employee's gross pay. So to accommodate that, we're going to provide a second variation of this report where
I'm here.
We can run this off of pay.
So the meeting is in the other show.
The report's pretty much the same, except we've given this provision where 15 IDs can be entered in. So now, rather than just going off of gross pay, you can specifically identify the pay IDs.
Awesome.
It'll pick these up. Now, if you need more than 15, we'd have to edit this a bit in order to add in some more here, and you can hard code these in the report design also. So you don't, for example, if you know what these 10 might be, if you go into the report design, you can put a default in for each of these pay IDs, so you wouldn't have to enter it in.
That's okay.
Okay. Everything else about the report is exactly the same as far as the exclude employees and those things. It's just how that pay. Okay, so we're going to be providing both of these reports. I'm hoping that gross pay will work for most. I haven't limited many of the pays, but if it's, and of course, gross pay is actual, like what they get on their T4, right? That pay. But if you do need to limit it, we will provide this one here also. Okay. Okay. Moving along. Oh, that's not correct. Over here. So another subsidy that is out there is you can claim back the employer EI and the employer CPP for employees that you are paying but are not working. So the terminology is refund covers 100% of employer paid contributions for eligible employees for each week throughout which those employees are on leave. So the on leave means they're not working, so they're not doing anything, but you're still paying them. Okay. This is on top of the subsidy of the $847. So this would be in addition to that, and there's no limit to this. Okay. So if you have employees you're still paying but not working, you would get the subsidy we just saw plus this here. So that report is a third report, contribution refunds. Pretty basic report. When you run this, there's only a couple of fields to fill out, and that's going to be date range. Couldn't really come up with anything that would know whether people were working or not working. So the idea on the report is that you can run it, and then you can decide who you want to have on there. You probably know who isn't working. The idea is that this reporting period is for people that are working. So you'd actually be starting this at March the 15th on, and you may have a need to run this for a week or for 2 or a month. So we've left the dates open because you might have a week where somebody works and the next week they don't work and the next week they do work. So you might, the pay doesn't change, but you can only claim this for when they're not working. Okay? So there is some work required on your side to know what those periods are. So when we run this report, once again, it's a pretty straightforward report. It's going to look something like this, where you're going to say, this is the date range that I want it, and then we can say, and these are the employees I want to have this for, the ones that meet the condition that I paid them, but they weren't working in this date range. And here's the value of the EI and the CPP. So there's the value of the claim for this one here. Much like the first report, where we could exclude employees, in this one, I sort of flipped it around because my feeling was, and I can take comments on this at the end, is that this is probably less likely that you're paying people and they're not working. They're probably working and they're getting paid. So on the employee setup, you may have saw it when we were going through here, there's a checklist number 10. Where we want to include on the EI CPP report. So this one here is, I flipped it around. It's not check it to exclude the employee, check it to include the employee. Okay. And once again, this can easily be changed. Okay, so that's the only condition we have on this one here. Once again, I'll just quickly run into the report design. I'll show you the design of the report here. Little simpler. Once again, tools and formulas. And so it's an include employee. So basically it says, here's that field, that's checklist 10, equals Y. Y means yes, that box is actually checked. So you can flip that around and equals no if you'd rather have it so it does everybody and you have to go in and pick this and to exclude people. So it's whatever would work best for what your setup is. Okay. Another couple of formulas in here. There are a couple of different ones for the province of Quebec. I did create the formulas, but didn't drop them onto the report. So if you do have employees in that province, it's EI. They wouldn't have CPP, but they have the Quebec pension plan. There's also another one called the Quebec Parental Leave Plan, I believe is the full name of that. And if you need these, we can just drop these in. Another quick shortcut on this one is that if you do run the report and you have these dates, let's just say we're just running for 3/15/20 to 4/11/20. There's a condition on this for the include employees. If you just take this off, it will run it for all employees, whether you have that box checked. That could be helpful in that you'd see everybody, and then you can decide who do I want to leave in or who do I want to take out of here. Okay. So we're going to, as I said, you're going to be getting these reports. Some of you, I'm sure, know how to do this. I'm sure some don't. The first thing you need to do to be able to use these reports is take them and add them to your Sage 300 CRE menu, so you can actually print them out. So however we get these reports to you, whether they're emailed or I think they might be on another. You'll get an email for another link to a website that'll have these reports. We'll have this presentation on it also, so you'll be able to go through and sort of see it if you want to follow back to see how to make these changes. So you're going to get 3 files. Those are the 3 separate reports. First of all, we just need to save those files. Okay. The typical location is your server name. So that's often, you'd have to just check that. You will all have different server names for where your Sage data is, where your Sage program is. But the default location for all of our reports is this path. It's your server name, Timberline Office 9.5 Accounting Reports. It's a good place to save them because that's where all of your other standard reports are. Some of you might see a folder called Custom Reports in pretty much the same location. You might have Accounting Custom Reports. If you want to put them in there, that's fine too. Okay, you can save them wherever you want, as long as it's in a shared location. Okay. So once you have the file saved over, now we can go through and we can add them to your, let's say to your payroll menu. So I'm just going to walk through this and I'll show these steps. So we'd open up the payroll and we go to reports, and the report manager is a task that we have. We'll be able to name what the report is and add it to a group or create a new group. And then basically we just browse out to where we save the file, and that drops it onto the menu. Okay. Let's tour that. Here, so under payroll, then we have report and the report manager. We'll also mention that if you're not an application administrator, you may not see all these tasks. So either you're going to be granted this, or you need to be an application admin if it's not part of your Sage user security that you've been set up. So to add a new report, we can just select new. Okay. Then you call the report whatever you want to call it. Whatever you put in here is exactly how it'll look on your reports menu coming out. If I hit my list button, I can select an existing sub menu, or I can create my own. If I just type it in, then it'll create a brand new one. It's always going to be this because these are report design files, and now we just browse out to where these files are. So now you can go out to your server name to whatever that location is. When you find the file, you just double click it, it'll drop it into here. You say OK, and now that gets added to your reports menu. If you're an application administrator, you will have access to it right away. If you're not, or if you need to put it out to people who are not, you do need to go into Sage Security and grant access to any other users you want to have access to this report. By default, Sage does not grant access to new reports to people who are not application admin. You must grant it. Okay.
Oh, sorry, honey.
These are the ones I just added in down here. So these are the 3 new reports. It would be something like that. So, getting down to the end here.
You don't want to hear Rob's voice?
And finally, so what's out there now is we have these rules that I put out, but they still haven't come out with how you're going to actually make the application to get this money. So this is coming right off of the site. More details about the application process will be made available shortly. So, of course, some of the things we've done in here, it might be better to, or we might have room to make some changes to this later. For example, adding SIN numbers and doing things like that. We're not sure what they're going to be asking for yet. Okay. And if you need any help, so once again, we've made these reports pretty generic, so anybody can use them. If you want some help to modify them to suit your own needs, or you can reach out to the consultant you would normally deal with, or you can just send an email to support@constructivesolutions.com, and we'll get a consultant to get back to you to make those changes. So we have a bit of time. If anybody had any questions, I'd be happy to address them. No? Okay. So I believe we're going to get these reports out to you. I think you're going to receive another email shortly, or I'm not sure if it's today or the next day, whatever it is. There's going to be another one of these sessions next week with another topic. And I believe there's going to be a link on that where you can download these reports. We're also going to, as I said, provide recordings so you can go back through it to follow any of these steps. So if anybody has any other questions, we can wrap it up. But if you have anything, just
yeah. Hey, Rob.
Yeah.
I'm not on the original email list. How do I get a copy of this report?
Yeah. Well, if you send an email to support@constructivesolutions.com and ask them to add you to that list. And we'll make sure you get added. And for some reason you don't see it in the next few days, go ahead and send me an email. I'm rob@constructivesolutions.com. And if you don't see it, I will go along and make sure anybody gets added to it.
Great. Thanks, Rob.
No problem. Okay, well, I think that's it. I'm going to thank you all for your time today. I hope we're all staying safe and staying isolated. And I'm sure some are at work and some are at home, but everybody stay safe, stay healthy. And if you have any questions, as I said, my email is rob@constructivesolutions.com, or send it out to support. We're very happy to help. Okay, I'm going to end the meeting from my end here. So take care.